Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jason Kardashi, Managing Director of Burley Walsh, and I'll be presenting to you this evening in relation to talk. We'll just give it a short period now for some further people to join the call. There is currently people still joining actively, so let's just give it a short moment. For those of you who are joining, we're just giving it a minute or two for others to join in. Okay, Alan, I think we may as well commence. If you can put up the presentation. Thank you. Welcome everybody to Talk Group Holdings Limited in liquidation. This is a Creditor virtual town hall and information session effectively. Next slide. Again. The protocol for the meeting is there'll be a presentation from me. We have received some questions in advance of this meeting and we'll seek to address those towards the end. If you have additional questions, you may submit them through the chat box on the screen. They will be collated and shared with us towards the end of the presentation, and we'll try to address as many of those as we sensibly can at the end as well. As always, we are available and can be directly contacted at the email address that's been provided to try to assist with any general queries that you may have. The introduction. On the 2nd of March, Philip Smith and myself, Jason Kardashi of Burley Walsh, were appointed joint provisional liquidators of Talk pursuant to an order of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in the BVI. On the 18th of March, we were confirmed as joint liquidators pursuant to an order of the BVI Court. The job of roles and responsibilities of a liquidator are stipulated in the BVI Act, Section 186 and Section 2. But in short, our job is to take possession of any assets that there are, distribute those assets once they can be realised and to creditors. One of the questions that will come up later is, why can't Talk do it? What the cost and expense of this exercise is disappointing. That's well understood, but Talk had no option. It was insolvent at the time, having knowingly only a small amount of assets and a very large amount of creditors. It was unable to continue to trade, and appropriately put the company into liquidation so that an independent party experienced in these matters can take care of the administration and wind down of its affairs. Next slide. Talk began life in October 2019. The sole shareholder and director was Bernard Ong. Next slide. There was a loose group of Talk companies. Talk Management as well was a Maltese company. And Talk Technologies company was a Vietnamese entity which had no assets and liabilities but provided the technological and operational support to Talk. The engine room, if you like, was located in Vietnam, and services were provided back to Talk BVI entity. Next slide. Talk was a global online platform for crypto trading. Users had their own Talk trading platform and other crypto-related services with a mobile app and website. Talk users registered at that website address to open an account. Talk accepted various cryptocurrency asset deposits in 7 different cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Ether, Tether, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Tron, and Ripple. And they could make deposits into either their Talk personal wallet or into the trading wallet. Deposits that went into the personal wallets were hosted on Talk's website and application. Users had exclusive control of cryptocurrency assets in their personal wallet at all times. It was purely a hosting function by Talk. Deposits that were made into the trading wallets were used by Talk to conduct trades on Binance in an effort to generate profits for users. And Talk had 2 primary trading strategies: arbitrage, purchase and sale of the same assets across different markets to make a margin, or scalping, purchase and sale of the same asset within a very short time frame, profiting from small price movements. Talk these crypto assets on 37 different user accounts with different cryptocurrency exchanges. The majority, though, were held on Binance through a main trading account, but a network of 240 linked sub-accounts, what we'll describe as the Talk trading accounts. Importantly, there was also one Talk laptop with API keys, passwords, which hosted a further 748,000 cold wallets. Next slide. I don't think much of what I've said so far and this next bit is news to people, unfortunately. In February of this year, the Chief Technology Officer, Wu Zhongyi, Z, sent the director, Bernard, a series of text messages on Telegram. He claimed in those messages that he'd made unauthorised leverage trades and resulting in substantial trading losses to Talk. The director announced that at the time to users, and management then also immediately commenced their own investigations as to what happened. And those investigations revealed that apart from unauthorised trades, that there was some misappropriation of these crypto assets, and Talk immediately suspended all activity and started their own internal audit. There was a report made to the police days later on the 14th of February, the police in Singapore, in respect of the misappropriated assets. At the time, the directors then also established that Talk was insolvent. $8 million worth of crypto assets, but 300 million plus of claims by by investors, completely unable to continue to trade and insolvent, and appropriately appointed liquidators to investigate, trace, freeze and recover whatever assets would be possible. Next slide. Key activities. Just summarised here are a few of the things that we've been busy with. I won't bore you with the statutory duties, but we have obligations to report to the court, and dealing with statements of affairs, submission, and circulars and communication with creditors has been a very large part of this. The two middle boxes is where the main focus of our team has been. Securing talk books and records is important so that we can conduct the necessary investigations to work out what's going on here, and promote the search for assets. The books and records that are available came from the registered agent, physical control of the directors' information and talk management's information. We forensically imaged a copy of all available electronic records. Full transactional history of deposits and withdrawals has been obtained from Binance. However, importantly, Binance have refused to provide more detailed information in respect of trading, which we'll talk about again later. The cold wallet was on a laptop in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, and we were able to secure that and return it back for analysis. Securing the assets that are there, we froze the talk system, secured control of the talk trading accounts on Binance by changing the security information, issued letters to Binance and the other 29 crypto exchanges, advising of our appointment and requesting them to freeze all accounts, and reviewing quite a lot of information that's been coming from you guys and other sources to help with our investigations. We're doing property and asset searches in Singapore and BVI as well. Investigations are progressing. They are, however, subject to the information that is available, and it has taken time to establish and obtain that information. We have interviewed all the important staff to understand and establish the process here, the controls that were in place, trying to reconcile the full transactional information that was available in the talk system to what we could find in Binance. We have cryptocurrency analytics and tracing experts working with us to track down where misappropriated assets have gone. Council have assisted us in Singapore and in the BVI in obtaining freezing and disclosure orders against Z and any assets that Z has globally. We have private investors work to find him and to find any assets that he may have in his own name. We have made progress in relation to that work, and I know that you're going to be disappointed well, with everything, but also with what I have to say tonight. But I'm really not able to tell you a great deal more than that. We do have a further section, because the more information I disclose in a forum like this introduces more risk that those investigations are not successful, because we're hunting down the man that is responsible for this and any assets he has and any information he may get in relation to that work that we're doing. It increases the risk that he hides things further and we're unable to retrieve anything. Next slide. Again. So in summary, the talk records and investor database indicate that there were just over 14,000 investors across the different cryptocurrencies, just over half in Bitcoin, the next large amounts in Ether and USD Tether. That's over 90% of the assets. The investors are in lots of different places. 40% in Singapore and 22% in Malaysia, and then the balance of almost 40% in a whole host of different countries. There's a line there that talks about G7 creditors and a comment in the bottom right. The previous report and information we've given to creditors was the 345 million in US dollar equivalent claims. After we issued our report to the BVI court on the 7th of May, a letter has come from a group of 7 creditors who have claimed to have deposited just over $60 million into crypto assets directly into Talk's Binance account. Because they didn't go through the Talk system, it's not recorded in the Talk database. We don't know yet whether that's a valid claim or not. We've requested further information, but on the basis that it is, that would make total claims 406 million USD. The average claim size, I mean, you'll see some information later. There's some people that have put some substantial amounts of money into this, but the average claim value for individuals is about 24,000 US dollars. Next slide, please. These are the various breakdown of the assets and at some different points in time. On the 5th of May, the issuance of the report, without going into the detail there's effectively $13.7 million of US dollar equivalent assets. We'll talk about the personal trading accounts again shortly, but there was almost $3 million claimed by those parties, which would have a net $11 million available for distribution to all the creditors. As you're all acutely aware, cryptocurrency assets have reduced substantially since then, and the amount is reduced to $8 million at around this time. Next slide, please. Just talking more about that variance, I mean, Ether, for example, which is a quarter almost of the assets, peaked at 3,459, and the floor is half that, basically, 1,456, just in this 2-month period. In the last 3 weeks, Bitcoin's gone from 60,000 to 30,000. Ether's gone from 4,000. In the middle of March, the asset value was 9. It went up to 13.7, and now it's back down to 8.2. Because of this, I mean, back in, unfortunately, the BVI court wasn't as responsive, but you would have read in there that we made an application to allow us to convert the crypto assets into cash or Tether. You'll hear shortly that has been accepted by the court, and it now remains an available option to us. Whether we do or don't is still a decision that we need to make. Part of this town hall and the establishment of a creditor committee is designed to help us with that decision, which we'll talk about more later. That's been a consistent question from many of you guys, that you may want back crypto rather than cash, and I'll talk about that towards the end. Next slide, please. Here's just a diagram for what's a very key issue here. I mean, we understand the questions that come, and the questions that come are, when can I have my money back? You put it into your user account and you expected it to be there, but the simple answer is it's not there. So Talk users, you look through the app and had your account balance, but once it went into the trading wallets, it just goes into that big Binance bucket, and it was commingled. All of the crypto was commingled. There was no segregation, and it was a pooling of assets. So there's absolutely no way to establish which crypto asset is yours. It might say that on your Talk user platform, but it's all gone into this big Binance bucket and got mixed around and washed around, and it's just sitting there like that. So there is no direct way to recognize or account for that, and that's a very important part of the BVI court order that we've just obtained, where the BVI court agrees that those assets need to be pooled and then shared with all of the creditors. For the Talk personal wallets, that is different. There was a Talk account and then a personal wallet, and it went directly in there, and that's all that ever happened. It never was commingled within the big Binance bucket. Next slide, please. That is repeating effectively what I've just been talking about, which is that the assets that are there now in Binance are assets that effectively will be shared in the trading wallet, shared amongst all creditors equally. How they're shared, we'll talk about later, whether USDT or cash. For the personal wallet, that was a separate service. Users were able to store cryptocurrency assets in a unique digital wallet address provided to the individual user. Personal wallet did not involve users transferring crypto assets to any digital wallet that belonged to or controlled by Talk. So these personal wallet crypto assets are not assets of Talk's estate in the liquidation, and not available generally to the rest of creditors. We've now had legal advice on that, and the court has confirmed that position. Next slide, please. Personal trading sub-accounts. Certain creditors have said they have an agreement with Talk where their crypto assets were held in specific Talk sub-accounts on trust for their personal trading. Even though it's unclear which crypto assets continue to be held by users in personal wallets. I mean, we're working with these parties to provide us with enough evidence to support this. It's possible that these trading sub-accounts may also be trust assets. The value that's in the specific personal sub-accounts is around $2.2 million US. So if it is established that that is personal trading sub-account, then the available assets to be shared would reduce from 8.2 to 6 million. As I mentioned, and we mentioned in our report, we were making the application to the BVI court for 4 orders. We obtained that just the other day on the 25th of May. The orders were that ownership and legal entitlement of the crypto assets held in the trading wallets and the personal wallets is correct. And that's that there's a bucket to be shared with everyone, and that there's some that gets segregated. We received an order that we are able to convert or tether in order to preserve the amount available. we're also entitled to reactivate the Talk personal wallet functionality, which will allow you to draw these assets. And finally, you won't be familiar with this, but to prove your claims, the process in the BVI requires formal forms to be filled out and signatures to be made. And with this number of creditors in this number of places, we sought an order that we would be able to do that electronically so that we can reduce the cost of the exercise. Next slide, please. It's too early to say this with any certainty, but for illustrative purposes and based upon the valuation of crypto, today basically, 23rd of May, the court report earlier in the month, as you know, crypto has reduced substantially. We estimated 1.5 to 3 cents, or 1.5 to 2.5 cents if the personal trading sub-accounts I just spoke about are in fact the property of those parties. That is now reduced to 0.5 cent to 1.5, or 0.4% to 1.5 cents. That distribution assumes the $8.2 million. It allows for a little bit of fluctuation in crypto, but not much. It assumes that there's no recoveries from any other actions or from Z, and that the expenses of this exercise, our costs and lawyers' costs, are between 1.5 to 2 million. Next slide, please. The timeline, another key focus for everybody, which we completely understand. I hope this discussion and other information we provided gives you an idea of how complex this is, how challenging. It can't be done overnight. If we chose not to pursue any further investigations or legal proceedings to recover further assets, we would still need at least another 6 months to finish this process. There's still work being done on investigations to find and establish if there are things to be chased down. The adjudication of claims is a substantial exercise in and of itself. As I mentioned, there's 14,000 creditors in 120 countries. We can't pay each of you any money until we confirm the amount that is due to you. And we're going to need to consider that process so that we can do it in a speedy and cost-effective manner as possible. How do we pay you the money, and what do we pay you? If we're going to pay you cash, I've got to get details of 14,000 bank accounts and KYC, and that takes time and that takes money. Or, do we pay you in crypto, or do we pay you in USD? That process of distributions is something that needs to be worked on. Again, the goal is to reduce the cost and get something to you as quickly as possible. But for all of these reasons, even if we ceased further investigations and asset recovery work, it still would require another 6 months to complete and get you even that very small distribution. How much longer could it take depends on what we find. Our investigations are ongoing. Excuse me. And I can't say too much about it, but we are hunting down in what is an extraordinarily complicated matter for where these funds may be. If we are able to establish claims, it's going to require court processes, and court processes are time consuming. So it would be at least another 12 to 18 months beyond that. But that decision is made in your interests. It's not, we're not doing this for the fun of it, and we're not doing it just to put money in our own pocket. We're doing this to efficiently administer the assets and then to get them into your hands. But the complication of the matter and the size, the amount of creditors and counterparties that are not helpful, like Binance, in providing information, means that it does take time to complete the work that we need to do. Next slide, please. Our investigations broadly are looking to establish what was the quantum of unauthorised trades. Did Z just lose all the money? If he did lose all the money, then we're not going to be recovering anything further from it because he lost it legitimately. It was probably not authorised or appropriate, of course, but the money, where the money is now in a counterpart's pocket, is we're not going to be able to get it back. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to establish this yet because Binance is resisting still providing us with the information that we need in respect of the trading. We are, through our own legal advisors, taking steps to force them to give us that information. B, misappropriated assets. We have made an application restraining Z from selling anything globally or diminishing the value of any of his assets in or outside of Singapore. It's called a Maraba injunction, and is very effective. We have not. We continue to work on identifying any assets in his name that may be able to be available to the estate. For identification, asset identification and tracing, we're focusing on crypto assets. We're using our cyber and technology experts to trace unauthorised transfers and misappropriated assets to their ultimate digital wallet destination, and then establish who the owner of these accounts are and the physical location. That is not straightforward. There's many techniques that have been employed here, layering and others, that mean tracing those funds and their movement is a very detailed and complicated exercise. Other assets of relevant parties, we are looking for Kroll's assets. We're looking for Z, we're looking for his assets. That is something that we are intimately familiar with, this type of investigative work. We have people that are hunting for him and his assets. We have not yet found him, and we have not yet found substantial assets, but we continue to work on them. Next slide, please. There may be claims under Section 9 of the Insolvency Act, promotion, formation, management, conduct of the affairs and insolvency of talk, conduct of directors and management. We continue investigations in respect of that. Again, we're not able to provide any detailed updates on this. Disclosure of the progress of this work would potentially compromise it. In respect of, and there's been lots of questions about this as well, and Bernard and Singapore management, I can tell you that Bernard and Singapore management throughout this process have been entirely cooperative, all of the information that they can, and assisted us whenever they've been asked to asked by us for the information that we need to conduct our work. That doesn't mean that we're not investigating whether they have breached their obligations to the company. We are, but at this stage we have not identified any claims in that regard. Next slide, please. Ad hoc creditor committee. We sent you emails and asked for you to submit nominations. Below that table sets out the nominations received. We have 6 that are highlighted in bold that will be accepted and comprise the Creditor Committee. Lo Ting Q, he is the CFO of Talk, and has claims associated with him of around 50 million, potentially the G7 creditors. So Chin Klang, a Singaporean who has expertise in finance and crypto. He represents around 70 other creditors. Lim Meng Tse, Malaysian Singaporean PR, representing over 140 creditor accounts, 16 million. George Bizanis, who has been helpful to us throughout this, and he has substantial expertise that's helpful, $15 million representation. Gregory Sorensen, he represents 19 creditors that have appointed Drew and Napier. And $5 million of claims. And Bruce Spetzer, representing 5 creditors. He's a US attorney. There's only a small amount there, but we didn't get the information in time, and it's a larger number than that. This group have really helpful expertise, and I'm sure they all know more about crypto than I do to help us with our work. The role that we are looking for here, we're looking for help and guidance and advice. It's not a formal role. It doesn't provide any approvals. You don't get paid, but in a smaller group like this, we are going to be able to disclose more information because on the basis that it will be kept confidential, confidentiality agreements will be signed. Next slide, please. By providing them with further information, we can get further assistance and guidance from them. And they've been chosen because they're representative of many of the other investors in a larger body. There are 6 that are named there. We will probably add 1 or 2 more. There were 4 other very small investors that were that nominated themselves. And there's 1 other that's notified me that but we didn't receive his email. So we will probably add 1 or 2 in coming days to that and establish a committee of likely 8. Next slide, please. Q&A. Okay, and Mark, who's listening, if there are any other questions that have come through during this, feed them through and we'll do our best to answer what we can. The first one I've addressed during the presentation, when can I get my money? It's been a pretty consistent question. We understand it. I hope this has helped. We are quite clear now that unfortunately the amount that's coming is very low, between 0.5 cent and 1.5 cents, subject to what crypto does between now and then. And the absolute earliest that we could do that would be 6 months from now. If there is reason to pursue further investigations because we find assets, it can take longer, another 1 to 2 years. But we would only be doing that if there's a benefit, an expected benefit to you, because we would expect to be able to recover more assets to be able to distribute. Why is your money being used to pay our fees? Why is Talk Management not paying for this? You're not approving this process or our fees. Well, it's a process that's necessary. The the company was insolvent. Management is not an appropriate, particularly given with what went on, an appropriate party to be administering the wind down of this estate. That there are investigations that need to be conducted into management. Sorry, I should have mentioned for the ad hoc committee, the CFO of Talk, insofar as it comes to investigations or anything that would be a conflict, he obviously would not participate in those discussions. He's there to help with his experience and knowledge of the company, but insofar as there were things that we talked about, investigations of management or others, he would be excused. So it's necessary that the company be liquidated. The BVI court appointed us as an independent party. Management have contributed funds towards the costs. That was recognised in the assets available. Around 300,000 Singapore dollars were paid just prior to the winding up in respect of costs. The creditors don't approve an appointment. The approval for such an appointment is from the shareholders and management, because they form a view that the company is insolvent and it should no longer continue to trade. And that was certainly the case here. The BVI court confirmed. Will Talk start trading again? Is there a recovery plan? No, not within Talk, the company that we are liquidators of. Business ceased, and there is no intention to trade. Whether Bernard and or the Talk management team continue with their trading business and wish to make proposals to creditors that have lost money here is an entirely separate matter, and up to them and up to creditors as to whether they wish to participate. But in respect of Talk and the assets that are there, we have a job to do in realising them, finding more and giving it back to you, but not trading. What is the claim process? We're going to work that out now. We're going to try to make it as painless as possible by doing it online and by using the company's app system to identify amounts that we believe should be owing. We don't want to go through too big an exercise that would cost too much money and time. But we will revert to you in due course with an explanation of that process. When will we resolve the trading wallet versus personal wallet issues? We need some more time. I would hope within the next 1 to 3 months at most. It's not up to us at the moment. We are asking for information from those parties that will let us understand it, substantiate it, receive legal advice in respect of it, and when we get that, we'll form a view and we'll be able to advise all creditors. Question 6 is a common one. What's the process for a dividend here? I want my specific crypto deposits refunded. That's simply not possible from 2 perspectives. One, obviously there's only, call it 1 cent on the dollar of whatever was deposited there, potentially to be repaid back. So the amount that was reflected as your deposit is gone. But for the 1%, can we give you back? If you thought you had a deposit of 100 Ether, can I give it back to you? No, because once it went into that pool, it all got commingled and it's all in lots of different currencies because it was all traded in different amounts. So the amount that people thought is deposited is all mixed up in the washing machine, and it is now something quite different. So there's no match. It's not like there's a direct 1% match in here to give back to you. And if we wanted to achieve that, we would have to buy and sell all these different cryptocurrencies to match 1% of the original amount. And that would cost too much money and it wouldn't make any sense. So that's impossible. What is possible is a decision as to whether we pay crypto, whether we pay US dollar tether, or whether we pay US dollars. And the decision in respect of that is something we're considering. Largely to be driven by an assessment of the risk. Unfortunately, we just received our court approval to change into US dollars after cryptocurrencies have come down so substantially. If we had received that earlier and decided that we should exit, then we would have had $30 million, but we didn't get the court date in time. What we decide to do depends on our assessment of the risk, but it is so volatile that it is a scary thing to be holding when substantial reductions can occur. And, you know, like the 3 cents goes down to 1 cent. It's disappointing for everybody. Whether it's US dollars or cash, these decisions will be driven by what's the most efficient process, what's the cheapest process as well. Transaction costs are something we're going to try and avoid. Question 7, I think I've answered earlier. We just don't know because we haven't yet got the information from Binance. They refuse to provide it. We're going to go to court and try to force them to give it to us. Impression of claims by Bernard and Talk team about the loss of funds, suspicion of foul play, evidence to substantiate claims of a scam. Was it a Ponzi scheme from the start? I can answer the latter part and confirm it definitely was not. We reviewed the trading patterns and information through our crypto tracing and analysis, and it certainly was not a Ponzi scheme from the start here. That indicates also to us that it wasn't a fraud perpetrated broadly by the management team. It appears to us that it was, as previously expressed, a lone party or parties, Z, that played outside the rules and committed the fraud. We haven't definitively established this yet, but strong indications from the cooperation of Bernard and the team and our analysis of the trading information, which is relatively recent in Talk's life. It wasn't from the start, that is for sure. Foul play, absolutely, by Bernard. Not just in losing it with unauthorised trades, but money has gone missing. How much has gone missing versus how much was lost? Sorry, I think I said Bernard. I meant to say Z. I don't know. We can't work that out yet. Mark, were there any other questions that came during the call that it would be helpful to deal with? I haven't received any, and I am at the end of the presentation. Alan, you can put up the first slide if you like. On the basis that there's nothing further to deal with, I think we can end the call. We will be available to you for further questions. We will review any questions that came through during the call, and we can revert on those as we go. We will now commence to work with the nominated creditors committee, and we can confirm that shortly. But we will be here if you would like to contact us directly with any questions. Please do so. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll be in touch shortly with further updates as and when we can. Good evening.